Hello, and welcome back to Eric Likes Animals, the podcast show that talks about amazing animals as well as interesting environmental news. I'm your host, Eric Mahan. If this is your first time listening, welcome. Thanks for giving the podcast a try. And if you're returning, welcome back. Glad you have decided to stick around. And with that, why don't we just jump right into things and get started with some environment news. First up, England is at it again in their efforts of rewilding their countryside. We, in previous episodes, talked about the bison herds introduced to the English countryside and that they have even had a first calf born. But now, they have decided to add another important animal back to their ecosystem, the beaver. Yep, for the first time in 400 years, beavers can be found in the southern English countryside once again. The two beavers who were named by local school children are named Hazel and Chompy, and though they never met before, scientists are hoping they will breed and make many more little beavers. But you never know, because we have seen in many incidences the question of what if I were the last guy on Earth? Some animals will say, well, still no. But let's hope Hazel and Chompy get along better than that. Because besides just having another species back, there is a bigger purpose to it, and it's the same answer to the joke, what did the fish say when it hit the concrete wall? Dam. Yep, beaver dams can be extremely important to the health of the ecosystem. By building these all-natural dams, they create wetlands that provide more water habitats, which help capture tons in CO2. It also stops sediment from farms in other areas from continuing to run downstream, acting like a giant Brita filter to the environment. Plus, they do it for free. If we were to do the same thing, it would take forever, cost a boatload of money, and not normally be very environmentally friendly. What makes beaver dams so effective is they will change spots and is never permanent, creating changes in habitats which increase plant growth, spread nutrients, all around the countryside, which really makes these two little beavers some of the most important engineers and designers in the entire United Kingdom. Next up, a tiny gecko with a huge comeback. On St. Vincent, a critically endangered gecko that's about the size of a paperclip, but with the skin of a fancy, expensive set of jewels, calls an island home. Discovered in 2005 in a 123-acre rainforest section on Union Island, this little gecko was discovered. Unfortunately, when it was, illegal pet smugglers raided this small bit of land, seizing up every tiny little gecko they could for the illegal pet trade. A gecko that truly was better off never being found due to humanity's greed. Luckily, in 2019, St. Vincent placed the gecko in Appendix 1 of CITES, or the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. Phew, now you know why we just call it CITES. This, by the way, is the highest level, meaning there should be no trade whatsoever of this species, no matter what country they are discovered in, trying to be smuggled in or out of, and should be met with the highest level of punishment for this crime. The efforts in this and actively putting boots on the ground to stop smugglers have drastically decreased the poaching, and not only put immediate stop to the loss of animals, but gave the gecko the ability to bounce back and gain back previous territory they called home fairly quickly. Because in just 4 years' time, the species has nearly doubled from 10,000 individuals to 18,000. Helping make sure the rainforest on Union Island will continue to sparkle with these little jewels. Last up, due to the fact that I've been watching The Last of Us on HBO Max, I figured I would tell you about this fungus story. But the story is not about destroying a fungus, but to help it, because they are really freaking important. As you may have already known or learned from The Last of Us, fungus has something called a mycelial network, which is the main fungus itself. The mushroom on top are just simply the fruiting bodies that deliver spores and spread. The mycelial network of fungus are huge and can cover great distances while all still technically just being one organism. Now, these mycelial networks are not there to tell zombies where to go attack uninfected people, but a network working together, communicating and passing along nutrients like water, carbon, and so on. Also, most fungus work with live plants. Some, like orchids, would not be able to survive without them. They even have evidence of fungus feeding trees that need nutrients and collecting that nutrients from miles away and transporting it to the tree itself, kind of like a power line sort of system. So it's important to know where these fungus sort of power lines run, because if you rip up or disturb a section of fungus, you may not just be destroying the fungus in that area, but all the plants that rely on it as well. So a team of scientists from all around the world have decided to band together and start looking at so-called fungus hotspots to understand and map these mycelial networks to understand how it works and what factors seem to affect it in the different regions of the world. Because a healthy ecosystem has a lot of fungus among us. Areas that have healthy mycelial networks, for example, has the ability to store 8 times more carbon than one that has been depleted, meaning a fungus halfway across the world can have major impacts on our lives. And yes, in a good way and not a zombieifying way. The scientists hope to take samples from 10,000 hotspots eventually, but right now they have identified 10 to start. These include areas in Patagonia, the tundra in Canada, high altitudes in South America, the Negev and Sahara deserts in Israel and Morocco, the Mexican highlands, the Russian taiga forest, and the steppes of Kazakhstan, as well as the lowlands of Tibet, all for the knowledge of better understanding the amazing fungus. And that is your environmental news. So, for today's species, we will be talking about a bird, and since last time we talked about a frog that had frogs in its mouth, why don't we talk about a bird called a frogmouth? More specifically, the tawny frogmouth. Now, the tawny frogmouth is a species of bird found on the mainland of Australia and Tasmania. They are found in a wide variety of habitats, so I'll just say the two you wouldn't find them in because honestly, that's a lot easier. You wouldn't find them in dense rainforests. Yes, Australia does have those, and the more extreme arid areas which have very little tree cover. Now, the tawny frogmouth is just one of 14 species of frogmouths who are all found in a variety of different habitats. All of the frogmouths are part of the nightjar, nighthawk, and whippoorwill family, a group of individuals that, for the most part, are nocturnal or crepuscular. And in case you haven't heard of nocturnal or crepuscular use before, nocturnal means they come out at night, and crepuscular is just a fancy way of saying that they come out around dawn and dusk time. And also, yes, there are a lot more birds out there besides owls that do come out at night. Though if you do see a tawny frogmouth at night, it does get confused with owls all the time, but I think it's more just because it's dark out because they really don't look anything alike. The tawny frogmouth, however, is a larger bird, normally with a height of about 8 to 21 inches or 20 to 53 centimeters, and a wingspan of 25 to 38 inches or 64 to 97 centimeters, and weigh up to about 1.5 pounds or 680 grams, and they can live about 15 years. Now, tawny frogmouths are very interesting looking birds to say the least. First thing you may notice is they have a huge, wide triangle beak that looks like a big frog mouth, like, say, a bullfrog's, hence the name frogmouth. The beak also has a very nice little hook on it just for catching prey. Why they need such an impressive beak is because unlike owls, tawny frogmouths don't have talons, and their legs, to say the least, are skinny little things. They look like they skip leg day at the gym. And in fact, some say the gait of the frogmouth almost looks like that of an old man with a bad case of gout. So yeah, the beaks are kind of their main form of catching prey because yeah, those little legs aren't doing too much. Now, the tawny frogmouth are ambush predators, and their brownish gray with molted black streaks and spotted feathers help with that, blending into the background, making it hard for even the best animals with great nocturnal vision to be able to spot them. And speaking of good nocturnal vision, they have 2 large yellow eyes that see extremely well in the dark world they live in, while they sit still waiting for potential prey. Its prey, by the way, is mostly insects, including but not limited to a variety of insects and other invertebrates like spiders, worms, slugs, snails, centipedes, and cockroaches. They will even on occasion go after the small mammals, birds, reptiles, and amphibians. But for the most part, we classify this bird as an insectivore or insect eater. However, this is Australia, and many bugs and arachnids punch a pretty nasty bite that can even kill a full-grown man. Luckily, the tawny frogmouth has that covered. Literally. It has stiff, whisker-like bristle feathers that cover around their beaks, helping protect their mouths against stinging or other dangerous insects from nasty and fatal stings and bites, while also making sure the insects go into the right direction, down into the tawny's belly. That, however, is not all these little whiskers can do. They also help detect flying insects. Acting like a sixth sense, the feathers can feel the air vibrations to tell where the insects are, which is extremely helpful for the tawny, especially since they have such a large snoz in form of a beak. When the tawny does take to the skies after flying insects or to scope out a good ambush location, it is noticeable that they are not the best of flyers compared to other birds, but it's for a good reason. Like owls, the frogmouth has compromised its flight abilities of speed and direction for stealth, a good trade-off for a bird that lives and hunts in the shadows. For the tawny frogmouth, quiet flight, along with owls, is due to having a rounded feather tip end, a small change but with major impacts. The rounded feather ends do not give as much lift or power as, say, a hawk, who has more pointed feathers, but the rounded feathered ends allow the tawny frogmouth to glide through the air, making not even a sound, which is perfect for sneaking up on unsuspecting prey. Or, as most animals are, not just predators, but also another animal's prey, those quiet feathers help protect them as they move around as well. Those feathers' colors also play an important role when the tawny frogmouth are dealing with predators, because its feather markings are in a way as to match the bark from different trees found around their habitat. But just having the right colors is not enough for looking like bark. But luckily, the tawny is an excellent method actor. For if the tawny hears a potential predator coming near them, they will straighten up and get really skinny while also closing their eyes and pointing their large beak up towards the sky. These actions make the tawny really sell the performance, now matching up with not just the color but the shape of bark on a tree. This method of camouflage, by the way, is called stumping, because the bird is trying to look like bark on a stump. I personally also think they chose it because it also stumps the potential predator as well, but that's just my own theory. Now, this causes predators most of the time just to simply walk by, all the while not knowing how close they came to a tawny lunch. Now, if that doesn't work, however, and the predator doesn't go away right away, or the tawny does get a little nervous staying there for too long, it will then move into plan B, which can go one of either way. They will either A, just immediately fly away, or B, it will try to at first intimidate the predator by getting very big and very puffy, and opening, of course, that big wide yellow beak to try and look more dangerous, and make the predator second guess if lunch is really worth it. The predators that the tawny frogmouth face are normally large snakes like carpet pythons, as well as invasives like foxes, cats, and dogs. For more intimidation against predators, tawny frogmouths will even hiss at them. Tawny frogmouths hissing is not the only noise they make. They actually make quite a few. For if a tawny frogmouth is startled, they will make a sound that sounds like a buzzing bee. They also make a sound that sounds like a crackling sort of noise, as well as the most common sound, kind of a deep or wooing sort of call. Luckily, you don't really have to trust or try to imagine what noises I'm trying to describe, because there are plenty of videos on YouTube if you want to hear them for yourself. And even with all these calls, tawnies are still considered quiet birds, which does make sense since they're ambush predators. You don't want to give away your spots. However, on occasion, they definitely do, and one of the most important times to be heard, of course, is during mating season when they're trying to pair off, because it's especially important for tawny frogmouths because they are monogamous and end up mating for life. Breeding season for tawnies are normally in August through December of each year. Typically, when the heavy seasonal rain starts, this will spark the drive for the tawnies to start breeding. If it's a pair's first year together, they will start by finding a good nest site. Normally, a good crop of a tree will do nicely. Unfortunately for tawnies, this is normally found in older trees, and the problem with that is so many trees around the world over the last couple hundred years have been chopped down, leaving very few truly old trees left, because in the tree world, a 100-year-old tree is still just a youngling. When the tawnies do find a tree, they will build their nest with leaves, feathers, moss, lichen, and even a little spiderweb to help hold it all together. This collection of materials helps in terms of camouflage from potential predators. When it's not breeding season, by the way, they will still hang out around the same area, but will normally roost in opposite trees. They do still work together during the day and night to help protect their territory from rival pairs and ensure they have the best location still for raising their chicks each year. They will also use the same nest location each year, which is why they do like to hang around and try to save their special spot. But even though it may be built in the same tree normally each year, they still normally have to start from scratch due to weather and other possible conditions messing up their nice nests from the year before. The tawnies will lay about 1 to 3 eggs in that nest, and both the male and female will incubate the eggs. It normally takes about 30 days for the chicks to hatch, and in about 25 to 35 days after the chicks hatch, they are all ready to leave the nest and go on their own little adventures. The young tawnies will normally also be sexually mature in or a little under 12 months' time, where then they will try to find a partner in life as well. As for how the population as a whole is doing for the tawny frogmouth, the IUCN Red List has them listed as least concern, population stable. But like almost every animal on this planet we talk about, yeah, that can quickly change. Some of the issues that plague the tawny frogmouth is some of the stuff that we've talked about before with other animals. One of the big ones, invasive animals and people's pets. People letting their dogs and cats outside to free range is extremely bad for the environment. But in Australia, it has an added bonus with cats that they have a disease called toxoplasmosis and is extremely dangerous for marsupials. Now, it doesn't kill off cats, but if it gets in a marsupial, which Australia is full of, it can be deadly. In the case of the tawny frogmouth, that's not a marsupial and it is a bird. It's kind of just the classic problem of animals that are extremely good hunters that are not supposed to be there, killing them off. The main culprits include dogs, cats, and foxes, all of which kill millions, if not billions, of native wildlife all around the world, all because we brought them in places they should never have gotten to. And trust me, if you do have a free ranging dog or cat, and even if you swear you've never seen them kill wildlife, they are definitely killing wildlife. Important for the environment. So keep them safe and wildlife safe and don't let them out on their own like that. Another issue for the tawny frogmouth, which we talked about for other animals before, is the tawny frogmouth being a big insect eater. Pesticides and other insect poisons are killing them off as well, which is a shame because tawny frogmouths do a lot for agriculture in Australia. Tawnies will take out millions of locusts and other crop-killing insects, but unfortunately people always think they can do it better and try to solve a problem and normally make it worse, especially for the animals trying to help them in the first place. If farmers would actually stop using pesticides and design farms in a way to encourage tawny frogmouths to be there with good nest spots and cover, farmers could gain a very valuable ally and possibly save a decent bit of money on buying pesticides and just let nature take its course. The last issue I want to talk about, however, for the tawny frogmouth is a bit newer one, and it's that they get hit by cars, which that part isn't new, but the reason behind why they're getting hit by cars being that of streetlights and car lights attracting a lot of bugs like moths are something new. So for the tawny frogmouth, when they see all these insects flying around the streets attracted to these lights, what they see is a big open buffet of flying insects near the road. And when they try and fly down to try and get a snack, instead they're getting hit by cars. Light pollution is normally a big problem for many birds around the world, especially when it comes to songbirds that try to migrate at night or in early morning. The bright city lights and windows cause these migratory birds to run in or strike the buildings. But the issue with the tawny is a bit different in this case, and it's just them trying to get a snack, especially since many insects that they would be able to catch safely in the woods are being drawn out of the forest and flying towards the light. And recently, this has gotten worse because with the brighter and more powerful LEDs, they are attracting more and more insects, meaning more and more possible chances for the tawnies to get hit. So, what can we do about that? Debugging our lights is honestly probably the best thing we can do and is already kind of here. But what does debugging mean? Well, many bugs are attracted to these lights because of the white LED light color. They give off because within the white LED lights are colors like blue, which are a main attractor to insects. This is because many use the full moon to navigate and guide them places when the moon is full. And when the moon is full, it does have a little bit of blue light in it, But with these bright lights all over, it confuses insects and drive them to go towards these extremely powerful light, thinking that they're going towards where the moon is telling them to go, but it's just artificial lights. So millions of insects die each year simply because they are attracted by a light and just can't get away. They're just so ingrained to follow it that they will starve to death. But people have already figured out solutions for this. We just need to scale them up to no bug lights for street lights and cars. And yeah, if you didn't know these lights exist, it's pretty legit. They have lights out there that still provide us with plenty of light, but they get rid of the color blue and it creates a bit more of an amber color instead of a bright white. The Smithsonian even have done research on this for the reasoning of trying to save endangered insects around the world because of the light pollution. And they have conducted these experiments in the middle of a tropical jungle, which, yeah, has extreme high densities of insects. And from these experiments, they have found that they could reduce the amounts of insects coming to artificial lights by 60% with the amber lights they decided to use. And though this study was more to help the insect populations, this same study proves that there are ways to reduce bugs going to artificial light areas, which in turn will reduce the need for tawny frogmouths to go there as well. Also, bonus, they are a lot less painful to have shine in your face than those bright white LEDs that blind you as you drive down the road, which is also super helpful because you never know. Sometimes you could be fine while your eyes adjust back. Other times, it could be missing the tawny frogmouth just trying to catch a bug right in front of you. And that's our show. Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed hearing about the tawny frogmouth, a big mouth bird that has some serious acting skills. As always, if you want more, you can check me out on Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok, as well as reaching out to me at ericlikesanimals@gmail.com. And before I go, I just want to share the news that just this morning, as I'm recording this podcast, I did see that at Dallas Zoo, they did find the two monkeys that went missing. Honestly, the whole situation over there is just so sad and horrible to hear about. And I hope that they catch the people or peoples responsible for endangering all these extremely important animals who are part of breeding programs to help save the species. This truly is a sad time for many conservationists and zoologists around the world, where a lot of these species are already at risk, and even just losing one is a truly devastating moment. Because already they lost and found a leopard, they lost and found two monkeys, and unfortunately they lost and found a dead vulture. All from someone or some people breaking into the zoo and either trying to release them for fun or whatever reasons, or trying to steal them for themselves for whatever reasons. Honestly, we're still not sure yet. But my hopes and thoughts are that hopefully this will stop for them and they can go back to doing the good conservation work that they normally do without the fear of, well, people. But thank you guys once again for listening. I'll see you next time.